All right. So I was doing a bit of mentoring in regional Queensland last year. And in one of the cohorts, there was a kid who was starting a t-shirt business. He was about 16. Like, this is legit true, right? And he was like trying to learn all of the startup methodology and things like that. And I'm curious to hear, if you met this kid who's 16 trying to start a t-shirt business, um, what his whole thing was like he just really wanted to get it off the ground, but he thought he needed to do a particular startup program before he started. Would you have any advice for him, or would is there any stories that you would share around that kind of journey? Yeah.
So I I think you know this. I don't know how many other people know this, but my first business was a t-shirt company, right? So um, I started out doing graphic design because I stayed up very late at night and the computer was always on and it was a friend to me and I downloaded some dodgy cracked copy of Photoshop or something. I hope Adobe don't end up, getting in contact. I'm really sorry. I've been paying my bills ever since, but like this is Photoshop 5.5 or 5.5 or something like that. And I just started mucking around with images. I started trying to help I brought them and showed my parents, my friends, and they were like, "That's cool," but like my family are, simple, like they're tradies, right? Like they didn't know what graphic design was. They didn't know what marketing was. They still don't. I've been doing it for 20 years, and they still have no idea what I do. And my dad, just looked at me and he's like, do you, can you put it on something? If you made a t-shirt out of that, I could buy that. I could understand that. And that sort of informed so much of, what led me, for a long time. Like I ended up running a t-shirt label that grew into, I think we had 25 stockists here in Australia and across into New Zealand. I had a line of snowboard clothing. I sponsored like rappers and snowboarders and skateboarders. It was the best learning experience I could have ever had. But the thing is, I don't care about t-shirts.
Yeah.
I don't care about fashion. I didn't care about any of the things that, that it was just a vehicle for me to learn. So if there was one thing that I would say to this kid, first of all, is don't do it. But second of all, if you're going to do it, and you're probably going to do it anyway, then why do it? What is it that you're setting out to learn? Because it might be that a t-shirt company is the best vehicle for that, but I didn't have any other vehicles. I didn't have, I didn't know, I was too young to go to university. There was no conversation about entrepreneurship in the outer eastern suburbs of Melbourne at the time. Like no one just I literally just I built something to try and have an output. And I completely understand that for a lot of founders, a lot of people starting a business, that's all they're really looking for. Maybe they've got an idea. Usually, the first idea is shocking. Mine was, it wasn't a good idea, but it was fun, and it was way more engaging than university. So I just I got started. Now, I would spend hopefully an hour, but like maybe 5 minutes at least, just saying as long as you've got just what are you actually setting out to achieve? Because if you want to build something, t-shirts are great. T-shirts are just awesome because the cost of entry, the barriers to entry for a t-shirt company are almost zero. You can print one t-shirt these days. When I got started, you needed to, screen print everything. And, there was like a minimum of, 25, 30, 50, and that's one color. And that's the problem when you're producing t-shirts or products, hard, tangible products. usually people say, oh, gee, like, oh, I really like that color, but, you know, I really like that design, but can you do that in gray, or, you know, can you do it in pink or whatever? And if you're a young, hungry founder, you'll probably start saying yes. And then all of a sudden you've produced all these different colorways, and it turns out that one person that said that is the only one who wanted it in pink. The amazing thing about where we're at now with digital products and, you know, proliferation of you know, entrepreneurial thinking is we understand that the idea of MVPs, or, you know, minimum viable product. If all I needed to do really was print out a version of get a printer. If only I'd, you know, thought this way, was like, what is the minimum viable product? What is the minimum version of this? And there's no doubt that my parents told me that at the time. They've probably said that to me forever. And I was probably totally set on the idea that it needs to be an actual t-shirt. It needs to be a real product. My question for this kid, just like it is for almost every founder that I talk to now, I had a conversation about this morning. Do you really need this product in your hand to be able to sell it? If you're really honest with yourself most of the time, the answer is no. You can almost certainly get away with smoke and mirrors, with a mock-up, with one version, one digital printed, you know, sketched up version. Even if you can't get a sale, what's the next version down? Like, if we think about, okay, a sale is gold, a referral is even better, you know, someone's buying from you and then saying that. But a step down from that, an intent to purchase. If someone gives you their email address or says, yes, I would buy it, please tell me when it's available to buy, that's almost as good. And if that, you know, like, that's what 95% of startups raise money against, you know, like all they've done is like got a whole bunch of intent to purchase. If we all sign up at a landing page and say, when this new email service drops, I want you to let me know and I want to sign up and do it. That intent to purchase, that is almost as good as you can get, almost as close as you can to a sale. It's harder with tangible physical products, but it's totally possible. So first of all, what are you trying to learn? If you want to run a t-shirt company, if that's genuinely what you want to do, let's look at 3, 4, 5 t-shirt companies that have started from similar circumstances with not much money from a regional area, and let's go and have a chat to the people who did that and find out their specific lessons. And then at least you've got a model that you can, you know, sort of track and get a sense, okay, reflect, is that the path that I really want to take? Because that sounds tough. That was really tough. And they're like, don't do it, don't do it, you know, whatever. But at least then you've got an idea of, okay, is this the business that I want to run? But if what you want to get out of it is just to make something, do it, because it is one of the best, like the lowest, cheapest, simplest ways to get something out there. And you end up with something cool to wear, which is, you know, so does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, it totally does. More than. Quick question. Do you remember getting your first sale that wasn't someone you knew?
Wait, do I ever? You know what? If this kid or any person wanting to start out with a t-shirt label, or any founder who has gone to the effort of building an MVP and getting it out there, one of the things that lots of people come up with ideas. Lots of people, too many people come up with ideas. They're cheap, right? Some people execute on that, go out and actually build something, start a t-shirt company, you know, build, you know, a water company, whatever it is. Only at the end of that, only after you've gone through that process, can you come to appreciate the exquisite pain of someone liking your product without that being indicative of a broader audience. one of the most powerful, painful lessons I ever learned was not to listen to a couple of cool people who really loved my thing, because I didn't pay them, like they didn't pay for the shirt, or they weren't prepared to pay what it was required for the product, and B, they're not indicative of the size of the audience that most businesses, you need lots of people to love what you do to justify it. And it might, certainly in the t-shirt label, right? Like this one, I'm really proud of. This is a great, Aboriginal company called Clothing the Gap, out of Brisbane, and they may not even want that many people, that, like, initially to be like building their stuff. But if you're going to be successful, you need lots of people to like something that you do if you want to build, and grow something really, really big and sustainable. The challenge is, if you get a high five every now and then from someone who loves what you do, and this used to happen. I would walk down Chapel Street in Melbourne, or I'd go to up to Mount Buller, and like where the snowboarding community was, who loved what I did. And I got this huge rush of gratification, of high fives, and yeah, man, like, I love this t-shirt. Oh man, I'm so proud of this, thing that you made, or whatever. But do you know how many people snowboard in Australia? Like, not many. And had I thought that process through early on, that this small community, like, if you're going to go for a smaller brand, then the product needs to cost more in order to justify the creation of that business. If you're going to go wide and mass, you can bring your prices down, because lots and lots of people, like what you do. And that's just simple, economics and whatever. But it took me years and years. And even now it's hard to think, man, I could have got more high fives from those really cool people because they liked my t-shirt. But that high fives do not a business make.
I love that. Put that on a t-shirt. So just recapping for this kid, or for anyone who's got an idea that they really want to make into a business, thinking about what do you want to get out of it? And is there some other way to get, if it's learning, is there some other way to get that learning? And if they're really dedicated to this particular idea, this particular business, then what is the minimum viable product? How can they sell it before doing the entire process of making it? And one thing that I'll go into, it's incredible how the lessons you learn as a young man in a t-shirt business are just so, like, the parallels between that and even starting any business now is kind of crazy. You didn't have an issue, like, you didn't seem to have an issue with the idea of starting a business. I know a lot of people struggle with actually making it happen. So maybe in closing, I'm going to ask that question. If someone is sitting on this idea that has been tugging at their heart for freaking ages, do you have anything to say to them? Should they do it? Should they go for an MVP? Should they just go and meet someone who's done what they've done? Or, should they keep sitting on it, maybe it'll be ready someday?
That's the eternal question these days, I think, particularly, now through COVID, a lot of people have had a lot of time to sit around and reassess not just their, financial situation, but, if the veneer, the facade of, I'm going to live to, 85, and, I'm going to have 2 or 3, careers in my life, and it's, I'm going to have this house and whatever. COVID has, at a global level, pulled back a lot of those curtains, right, and made us all reassess. And a lot of people now, particularly this time of year, like right now at New Year's, Christmas, lots of people are thinking, I've had this idea, I've wanted to do something for a long time. And funnily enough, they're picking up the phone and they're calling me, they're calling you, You know, and they're like, hey, you've done things before. Should I do this? I'd like, you know, I want to do something. I want to build something. I want to create something. That there's no one size fits all answer by any means. The startup mantra for a while there was just start, and that is good advice in many ways. Just start by watching a YouTube video, or figuring out, like, going and talking to a t-shirt manufacturing company. Like, what is the cheapest, fastest way for you to find out more about what it actually takes to make your thing into a thing? If you can possibly do that without putting down a cent, do it. Absolutely. Do that. Most people, unfortunately, get hung up on the idea that their thing is so new and so crazy and so innovative that there is simply no way to do any of that without spending money. And sometimes that's true. The entire venture capital model is based on the idea that if something is ambitious and long term and crazy and innovative enough, then you need to pile a bunch of money in order to not only build the thing, but gather enough people and enough momentum so that no one can catch up with you. No one can catch up with Uber because so much money was poured into that and expansion strategy and whatever. Lyft is an awesome brand, but essentially Uber have cornered that market because they have so much cash in the bank, right? But if you're not building, if you're building an Uber, then sure, venture capital. But if you're building a t-shirt company, talk to people who have run a t-shirt company before. Like, that's not necessarily the most innovative thing. And don't be scared to share your idea. I know that's hard for most people to understand, but everyone says they're gonna do something. Most people don't. The ones who have, the only people that you and I talk to, the only ones that we work with, are the ones who are prepared to have a crack. To actually, they've gone out and they've asked the questions, and they've been absolutely punched in the guts by the answers. And they get up and they do it again the next day and go, you know what? That was not the pricing I was expecting for what it takes to do X. I thought it was going to take me 3 months to do Y. And it turns out that I've been given this estimates and it's going to be way longer. But you know what? I looked myself in the mirror and I was like, I do care about this idea. I believe it will make a difference. I believe it's worth creating. And I'm asking the questions and I'm prepared to come at it again and again. So yes, start, make it cheap, time, you know, you've got lots of time, but you know, if you can make it efficient, but particularly free, don't spend any money if you don't have to. And most importantly, figure out, like, what is the fastest way you can figure out whether this thing really matters to you. And so maybe that's the best advice I can give, is just get to that point where it hurts as quickly as possible and figure out if you want to push through the pain.
Yeah, love it. Well, thanks, Muzz. This has been a great convo. I reckon that'll be really helpful for someone out there. And so, if you're watching and you're thinking of starting something, you've got it right there. And we hope to hear what you build someday in the future.
Yeah, let us know. I'm excited to find out.